All right, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100. We got some stocks we're going to be covering today, specifically options, etc. So first, let's jump into the market here. Again, if you missed our last video, the big things you're watching here are the Nasdaq, and as you can see that key level 1996 continues to hold here on the daily chart, getting almost back above 20,250. Again, another one of our focal points there. That's the Nasdaq. You own the ES, S&P futures. You're basically at all-time highs. Great mount, and this is probably what I'm most excited for. A few things here. So number one, you can see like your previous little high here that you had, where really you started to find buyers. That's number one, right? So you started to find buyers off that previous high. And then you can also come down in here and you can actually see that now we formed a little bit of a demand here on the daily time frame as well. So this is going to be a major support zone. So this is what I'm going to be looking at going into this week. If we start to get this upside pressure, hypothetically, you start to get this little upside pressure, breaking into like 5,900, give or take, right? If we pull back into this range, this is going to now be a massive, massive support. Just how this acted as a pretty great support, this will be a monster support now. So those things that I am watching going into this week, kind of watching the market here right now. The S&P, you can look at SPY, you look incredible, right? The SPY daily candle here, also incredible. When you go to higher time frames, it really gives you the overall visual of what you're looking at here. So people saying, oh, this was, it's a short, this is like that. I'm like, guys, why are we shorting at all-time highs? Statistically speaking, you're not, why are we trying to catch the top, right? Just like if we inverted this chart here, right? If I inverted SPY and I showed you the downside, you'd be like, okay, this thing looks like it wants to break back down pretty aggressively. It looks like a great short opportunity, wants to find new lows, right? So things to be looking at there. QQQ, again, we looked at Nasdaq. Qs are a little bit harder to look at, we'll say right now, but a few things you're looking at on Qs, as you can see, is one, getting the breakout basically above this level here, basically 487, and you also held above this little previous high there as well. Those are big things that you wanted to see. Above 487, 486, give or take, I think you have room back into locally 393, 394, right back where you filled that gap right there before, but then over 493, you're looking for all-time highs as well. So again, big levels you're looking at there. Now for a risk-on, risk-off standpoint, okay, we're going to go into that here in a second, but I do want to, before I go too far, okay, something you might have noticed this week was in the after hours, you didn't get as much movement as you had been getting in the previous week. Okay. So if you don't know, China's market was closed this past week. They've been closed for like a whole week. And then their holiday, China National Day, is on October 7th. And then that's when this all ends. So their market will reopen in around 34 hours. Okay. So not tomorrow, but tomorrow evening, they should be back open. Normally it'd open up tonight, but they will not. So again, food for thought. Expect more volatility and interest there. And we're going to be going into China stocks heavily today because I believe this plays a pretty big impact and there might be some big opportunities across the board. Okay. Also, too, really quick over the calendar here. Okay. Not the biggest week. Okay. You have some Fed members speaking here and there. The Fed members, what I'm curious about listening to them is their rhetoric regarding the jobs data. That's the biggest thing you need to listen to is what do they say based on jobs? Because if you don't follow on Twitter, I recommend doing so. Something I haven't really given too much time yet here on the channel was my opinions based on the new jobs report. So I think, and I said this and some people might have got confused and I should have put the word potentially pause, but yeah. So jobs report was honestly really interesting. I didn't really get to discuss in the YouTube video, but I think it could change a lot. Could is the key word there. Puts the Fed in a position to potentially, I should have said potentially pause in November. Jobs, they've been revising them back as well, showing that jobs weren't as bad as we may have thought. Unemployment numbers dropped back down to 4.1% instead of rising. And again, the whole point of the Fed cutting rates was to protect, maximum employment. So it's a little, you didn't want unemployment to start moving like this fast, okay? And if inflation is already moving in the right direction, you could potentially just be hindering the progress of inflation. And if that happens, this is kind of like a snowball effect here, right? So really important there. So that's why I'm listening to the Fed this week. Now on Thursday, it's your biggest day of the week, Thursday, a little bit of Friday, but Thursday primarily, you have your core CPI, more inflation data. Again, if inflation data continues on the same track, I anticipate more and more upside. Simple as that, right? And then as well, going into PPI on Friday with Michigan data expectations. Okay, so we got all of the boring stuff what we're looking at there, right? One more little tidbit of boring information. DXY, the risk on, risk off. The dollar continues to bounce from our level down here. Key support, as we mentioned, probably coming into 200 weekly, looking for rejection there. Bonds happening as well. Big bounce so far. You could not hold below 4%. That's been the story. We need to get a hold below 4%. We need a strong rejection. We're just not getting that so far. So again, watching bonds still get a little bit of a rise out of this right now. Again, job numbers definitely benefited the spike that we're seeing here in yields and the dollar. It's very important to understand that, right? And when you look at yields, they really paint some of the best picture as far as rate cuts and what's happening there. Now, sometimes you'll get some sporadic behavior, but again, for the most part, you can really use this as a good indicator. I think this is a reason for the concern. You can even see TLT, coming back on the downside. So again, things that I'm watching for closely here. Okay, that's the biggest thing right now. Now, we're getting into the good part, what we're looking at there. China names. I want to talk heavily about China names. Really quick, let me add the SMA back to my chart. Sometimes I accidentally I'll click and delete these, but let me add this back. If you guys don't know, you got to have the 200 SMA on the daily and the 200 SMA on the weekly is your best friend. If you don't, I don't know what you're doing. I really don't know what you're doing. And always make your 200 SMA yellow. Their daily should be yellow. And guess what? Your weekly, it should be green at all points in time. That's what it needs to be. I just set it up for you right in front of you. Okay. Now let's go into this specifically. Also, too, guys, hey, before I forget to do all this stuff. I forget to tell you all the time. Guys, if you want to see our day trading indicators as well, the links are down below. We're actually working on some new ones as well right now. But you can get access to these. Our volume indicator down here, our premium, equilibrium, and discount zones here as well. We have more for fair value gaps, etc. They're all pumped right in here from Luxalgo. The link is down below. You get 40% off with code OD40. So check that out as well. But yeah, let me get rid of that. It just doesn't look as clean here on the chart for this. Okay. Alibaba. Okay, I've been talking a lot about Chinese names. We've been talking about these quite a bit with the strength of China stocks in general. Okay. Baba, you have room at about 120. I'd be looking there. Okay. Pinduoduo, another interesting name, mounted over 153. I've been very clear about this one. Pinduoduo over 153 is a monster. This thing can start pushing back up into local highs of 166, but ultimately back into all-time highs. Be watching that as well. Baidu, another big interesting name here. You're already holding your key level of 107. Now you want to see the break and hold basically of this little region right here around 115. You can see that little previous low that you had back here going right there. Last time I checked this when I was in New York, actually. So again, you want to get above this 116 area, and you have room to 140, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. I'm not a fan of NEO. You can trade this if you want. You have room to like $9.50. I don't like it, though. I'm going to let you know right now. Those are my favorite Chinese names. But I'd be watching for momentum, watching for volume to step back into these equities because you have real potential there. And we've seen how they move, and they do move pretty good when the momentum does, shape back into there. So again, China names, very interesting this week. Has to be like top of your list to be watching, especially with how they've been moving even on the downside of the stock. When the stock market has been moving down, China names have kind of held up, right? Kind of almost like a little safe haven, if you will, right? So again, what I'd be watching right now. Another area of the market that I'm super interested in right now is semiconductors, because again, we go to SMH Semiconductors. You can see that you're holding your key levels. Again, the 239 level clearly holding, bouncing back up. Friday, decent close on semis, right? Not the greatest, but still decent, right? You can see bouncing back up, but you wanted to see something I was letting you guys know on Twitter as well. Again, on Friday, free game. Trying to let you guys know Meta was not free game. Sorry. Not sorry. But AMD, looking like a stunner. Told you this thing was going to start ripping up. Post this one in Discord as well. Okay. AMD, dude, getting over previous little highs here. Next stop here is like 174.5, give or take. Looking really, really good. Okay. Very strong AMD. Would definitely be watching this. Very strong name as well. Getting lots of volume, lots of pressure there. AVGO, another really strong name. Mentioned this one in Discord as well, the inverse head and shoulders. I did get stuck in the position here. I'm not going to take credit for the win. I'll be honest with you guys. Biden announced that they may strike Iran, and then we dumped, and then we pop back up. So tough, but either way, it was there. I posted that one on Twitter as well. If you guys are also interested in Discord, the link should be down below. But if it's not and you're still interested, just send me a DM or message me on Twitter. I respond there. So yeah. But anyways, AVGO back into 178. Definitely looking strong. Definitely looking for continuation. The big name here is obviously NVIDIA. And again, I've been saying this on repeat for NVIDIA, guys. NVIDIA is one of those names that if you hype your focus in the short term, I think you're going to be disappointed. Okay. NVIDIA is a name that you can buy dated and you can be fine and you're going to make a lot of money. I continue to say this. It's the one semi that I'm not interested in short term, because in the long term, I know what I'm going to make here. Okay. 2026 contracts are they're affordable in my opinion. Like they're very affordable. And I think you get back into 140, 150, these starts ripping up, and I think it's going to rip up the pennant. It looks so beautiful what's happening here. We just had Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, come out and say that the demand for NVIDIA's chips right now is insane. It's as high as it's been, right? So again, I think NVIDIA, short-dated contracts, do whatever you want. I'm not interested in them. Dated contracts, stress-free. I'm fine, right? So that's how I'm thinking about how I'm watching this name as well. Do what you got to do there, okay? Now, we can go down the list of SMCI, guys. It's absolute dog trash. Anytime we get dips, just go short SMCI. Heads up. ARM is also really nice above 136. I just don't want to. I don't want to forget any of these names, guys. I don't want to forget any of these names at all here. Okay. Now, going into some of the other names. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit more. CrowdStrike. I was adamant about CrowdStrike. I've been telling you guys the retest here of this previous high, 276, even down to 273, was a buying opportunity. We said it, and I believe this week you're probably going to get a move back in like 304, 200 SMA, over 200 SMA. Shove the chips in, boys and girls. That's what you want to see here on CrowdStrike as well. Really nice name. People keep asking me, hey, Tyler, what do you think about Snow? It's at all-time lows. I don't give a fuck about Snow. I care about the names that are making me money right now. If you believe long-term in Snow, then buy long-dated contracts and do what you got to do. But the majority of you guys here don't really care about long-dated contracts. You care about short-term success, and that's fine. Do what you got to do. But again, CrowdStrike is the name that I'm watching the most. Okay. Israel-Iran conflict as well. I think, I've talked a lot about this in Discord. I mentioned this a long time ago into the end of the year. I mentioned it here on YouTube as well. The best position for a hedge on your account was oil, energy names, and, they did great. So do what you got to do there. I don't like to talk about names when they're just blasting off into highs, right? I like to talk about opportunities and things that we can trade. I'm not going to trade this at all-time highs. That's crazy, okay? So again, these are my top names, what I'm looking at here in the day. If you have questions, comment down below. I might have missed a few names today, but I want to talk about the things that most interested me and where I'm moving this week. Last name I'll mention is going to be Amazon. Be careful on Amazon until you get back above 188.67, okay? That is your key level, your previous 2021 high right here, 188.7. Above that, you can go long, okay? Again, have a good one. See you guys tomorrow. Follow on Twitter. The works. Have a good one, traders.